I don't think I realised how many books I had to show in this haul until I piled them all up. We have a lot to get through, so sit back, get a drink, get a snack. This is going to be a long one, but it's going to be great. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a huge book haul for you. So half of these books are going to be books that I bought before lockdown to hopefully get me through, and the other half have been very kindly sent to me by publishers to review. Some of them I've requested and some of them have been sent to me. So I'm not going to talk any more about it, I'm just going to get stuck in. We've got a lot of books to get through. Some of these books I actually bought all the way back in March, just before the lockdown, and doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago? So we're going to start with those first. The first one that I picked up is The First Time Lauren Paling Died by Alison Rudd. I don't think I know too much about this. I picked it up on a whim. I really liked the cover, and from reading the blurb it seems like it's about a character called Lauren who is alive in different decades and keeps dying and keeps being reborn. It says Lauren Paling is born in the 60s and a child of the 70s. She's 13 years old the first time she dies. Lauren Paling is a teenager in the 80s, becomes a Londoner in the 90s, and each time she dies, new lives begin for the people who loved her, while Lauren enters a brand new life too. But in each of Lauren's lives, a man called Peter Stanning disappears, and in each of her lives, Lauren sets out to find him. So I feel like maybe there's going to be an element of romance in there, potentially, or a little bit of mystery, but I'm really into plot-heavy books at the moment rather than in-depth character studies. I think it's an escapism thing, which makes sense. So I'm really excited to get to this. It sounds fantastic. Please let me know if you've heard much about this, because I really hope it's good. So the next book I have for you I picked up at Scoob's secondhand bookstore in London, and this is Pant, which is by Sangeeta. I'm not going to try and pronounce her surname, but you can hopefully see it there. And it was translated by Arunava Sinha. So I've heard a lot about this book. I've actually been on the hunt for this book for quite a while. It's published by Tilted Access, which means it has this gorgeous little paperback, credited with being the woman who reintroduced hardcore sexuality into Bengali literature. She is neither superficial nor sensationalistic, equally concerned with debates on religion and nationhood as with gender and sexuality. I know that it's to do with a woman who finds a stained pair of pants in a wardrobe, and she starts to fantasise about the owners and where they could come from, but apart from that I don't really know much about it. I'm looking forward to going in blind, although I know that it's an incredibly important book and very powerful, so I'm really excited to get to this soon. So the next book I have to show you is The Marjorie by Rachel Kushner. This I have currently borrowed from a friend at work. It's about a character called Romy who is serving time in prison for killing her stalker, and I'm pretty sure it mulls over the friendships and relationships that you can have in a women's correctional facility, and it kind of goes from there. I've heard very mixed things about this book. I feel like this is going to be quite a gritty book and quite absorbing, which is something that I feel like I really need at the moment. The next book I have for you is Gingerbread by Helen Oyemi. I picked this up at the Foyles bookstore. I saw this and it's very much up my street. It's very much inspired by fairy tale. And I really like Helen Oyemi's work, so I feel like it's something that I'm going to really enjoy. It's about a girl called Perdita Lee and her mother who make gingerbread for people, but the gingerbread has magical properties, I believe. It's influenced by the mysterious place gingerbread holds in classic children's stories, equal parts wholesome and uncanny. I really like the idea of focusing around gingerbread. If you think about fairy tales and folklore, gingerbread is something that really does hold a lot of weight and is in a lot of fairy tales. So I feel like looking at this from a very like modern perspective and a twist on that classic trope, it's going to be really interesting, and I really like the cover. I think it's beautiful. So the next book I have for you is Butterflies in November, which is by Order Over... Do I? Probably not. She's from Iceland, and this is translated from the Icelandic by Brian Fitzgibbon. So I picked this up in Mr. B's bookshop in Bath over Christmas, so it's been a really long time since I bought this, and again at the time I read a couple of chapters of this and really enjoyed it. It's been a tough day. She's been dumped twice. She's accidentally killed a goose, and now she's suddenly responsible for her best friend's deaf-mute son. But when a shared lottery ticket turns the oddly matched pair into the richest people in Iceland, she and the boy find themselves on a road trip across the country. With cucumber hotels, dead sheep and any number of her exes on their tail, Butterflies in November is a blackly comic and uniquely moving tale of motherhood, friendship and the power of words. What I can remember from reading this back just before Christmas is it's really funny. The wit and humour in there is very sarcastic, and I really enjoyed that. But yeah. So the next book I have to share with you is Andrew Michael Hurley's Starve Acre. So Andrew is the author of The Loney, which was a hugely popular book, which I haven't read. I think I have it on my shelves, but it's not something that I've picked up yet. But I saw this in foils and I liked the premise of it. So it's about a child who's died and the father believes that the child is still around in some way, so he consults occultists. It's a very short book, so it's something that you can kind of read all in one sitting, which is something that I really enjoy. Ultimately, I think I'm really looking for something that is going to transport me to a different world and I can immerse some of my emotions in something other than the current climate. So the next book I have for you is Spoonbenders by Daryl Gregory. This is something that I think I picked up in foils in London just before lockdown happened. It's set in 1995 and it follows the Telemachus family, who were once known as, I think, like the great amazing Telemachus family, who would do like mind reading tricks. I think it's going to be a really funny novel. I've heard fantastic things about this. I've been itching to pick it up for quite a while. I think it follows the family and the like internal dynamic and the relationship between everybody in that family, while also focusing on things like mind reading and the falseness of that, which is something that I'm really interested in. And the last book I have for you that I bought myself is Lowborn by Kerry Hudson, Growing Up, Getting Away and Returning to Britain's Poorest Towns. I believe I saw this first on Lena Norm's channel. I'll leave the link to that video below where she talks about it. This sounds like my kind of ideal book. Kerry Hudson is proudly working class, but she was never proudly poor. The poverty she grew up in was all-encompassing, grinding and often dehumanising. Always on the move with her single mother, Kerry attended 9 primary schools and 5 secondaries, living in B&Bs and council flats. She scores 8 out of 10 on the Adverse Childhood Experiences measure of childhood trauma. 20 years later, Kerry's life is unrecognisable. She's a prize-winning novelist who has travelled the world. She has a secure home, a loving partner and has access to art, music, film and books. But she often finds herself looking over her shoulder, caught somehow between two worlds. The reason that I feel like I'm so drawn to this is because I grew up and still live in the West Midlands, which is working class, and I've kind of experienced versions of what I believe Kerry will go on to talk about, but definitely not as severe as her experience, so I'm really interested to see things from a different perspective. If anybody has any recommendations for books that are similar to this, about growing up in working class life or in working class Britain, I'd be really interested to hear your recommendations, so please let me know. So the first book that I have to show you is something that I am super excited about. So this is a proof copy for The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which is published by Dialogue Books and is out in very early June, so it is almost out. Britt Bennett is the author of a book called The Mothers, which, if you remember years ago on my channel, I read reviews and absolutely loved, so I was super excited to hear she's bringing out a new book. So this follows 2 sisters called Stella and Desiree, who are living in a black community in a town in America, and when they are 16 they disappear, they up and leave, and then 10 years later they return and everything is different, and it's about how their return impacts the community. What I really like about this and what I'm excited to read more about is the dynamic of life in a Southern Californian town in the 1950s and 1960s. I don't know too much about American history, so I'm really excited to read on and find out, and also the dynamic between the identical sisters as well. But yeah, it's really good. I'm excited about it, but full review will come soon. The next book I have for you is Keelan Hughes' The Wild Laughter, which is published by One World and will be published on the 23rd of July. I'm just going to read you the blurb for this one. So it's 2008 and the Celtic tiger has left devastation in its wake. For brothers Hart and Cormac Black, life continues as normal, at least at first, but when their father falls ill, they face a devastating choice. Their family and their community are in crisis, and there's nothing more dangerous than 2 men with nothing to lose. A sharp snapshot of a family and a nation suddenly unmoored, The Wild Laughter explores cowardice and sacrifice, faith rewarded and abandoned, the stories we tell ourselves and the ones we resist. I definitely see a recurring theme here among the books and the next one that I'm about to show you, which is family, and how I'm just very interested in other family dynamics and how families are written. So I'm really looking forward to kind of how that grips me as a reader. Again, I will let you know as soon as I've read this my more detailed thoughts, but as for now, super excited. The next book I have for you is The Fragments of My Father, a memoir of madness, love and being a carer by Sam Mills. So this is a memoir about Sam's life when her mother suddenly dies and she's left as a primary carer of her father, who has been diagnosed with mental illness disorders such as schizophrenia. And the reason that I was very much drawn to this is because I am my own dad's secondary carer. I may have mentioned it on the channel before, but if not, my dad has multiple sclerosis, which means my mum is his primary carer and I am his secondary for when she's not available. So I haven't really seen many books that tackle how to care for people who are disabled or mentally ill. So I'm very intrigued to see where this goes and how she feels, and because it's a memoir, because it's part autobiographical, I feel like it's going to hit home, and I feel like this is going to be a very emotional book. So this is published by Fourth Estate Books and it will be published on the 9th of July. So as soon as I have my review, I'll pop it up before it is released. Like with all of them, I'll pop all the information of where you can pre-order it down below. So the next book I have, also very kindly sent to me from Fourth Estate, is A Little London Scandal by Miranda Emerson. This is being published on the 6th of August. So this sounds great. What I know of this is it's set in the late 1960s, I think 1967 in London, and it's about the kind of sexual climate at that time. Nick Christou has been a rent boy since he was 15. He knows the ins and outs of Piccadilly Circus, how to spot a pretty policeman and interpret a fleeting glance. One summer night his life is turned upside down by violence and then an accusation of murder. Anna Treadway, fleeing the ghosts of her past, works as a dresser in Soho's Galaxy Theatre. She has learned never to place too much trust in the long arm of the law, and convinced Nick is innocent, she's determined to find him an alibi. Miriam Wallace, a devoted life to an MP with a tarnished reputation, just wants proof that her husband couldn't have been involved. I really like stories where there's 3 or 4 like main characters and it all kind of weaves together. So again, it's going to be a nice plot heavy book, which sounds really good, but I hope again it really will look at the kind of depiction of sexual crimes and violence against sex workers. Yeah. Doesn't that sound brilliant? That definitely sounds like my kind of book. It reminds me a little bit of a book called Fishnet, which was published by Freight, which was a Scottish publisher, which I don't think exists anymore, which was about sex work. Like I said, this one is out in August, so you've got a little bit of time yet, but I'll leave the link to a pre-order down below. So the next book I have for you is The Sin Eater by Megan Campbell. Again, this is a proof copy, but stunning. So this is published by Mantle and it is out on the 23rd of July, and all I'm going to do is read the back of this, because if that doesn't sell you like it sold me, I don't know what will. So it says, there is an old adage that says there's really only 2 stories, a man who goes on a voyage or a stranger arrives in town. This is the third, a woman breaks the rules. Sold to the highest bidder, that's me. I can't wait to read this. I don't read much fantasy, to be honest with you, if any, so I'm excited to kind of read something completely different. And I requested it because I was like, that sounds like my kind of book. If you're going to pop some feminism in there, I'm all over it. So yeah, again, I'll let you know my thoughts when I finish this. Speaking of fantasy, this arrived on my doorstep a couple of weeks ago. This is a proof copy of Midnight Twins by Holly Race, which is published by Hotkey Books. On the press release it says, this is a first in an endlessly inventive urban fantasy trilogy that takes you to a world where dreams and nightmares take form. So this is a YA book. It's out on the 11th of June, so again, not too long. I haven't read much YA for quite a while, so I'm quite excited. I don't know too much about this, so again I'll give you my thoughts when I finish it. So the next book that I have is She Would Be King, which is published by One, which is an imprint of Pushkin Press. This is a finished copy, so I don't have a date for this, but I'm assuming by now it may be out. I don't know too much about this one. This was very kindly sent to me. In the West African village of Ley, red-haired Jabessa is cursed with immortality at birth. On a plantation in Virginia, June Day struggles to hide his extraordinary strength from the brutal slave owners. High in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica, Norman Aragon discovers he can fade from sight at will. It says that it's a spectacular tale of magic and resistance, so potentially it's got some magical realism in there. Written by Waitu Moore, I believe is how you say that. But yeah, thank you so much Pushkin for sending me that. Next we have this absolutely gorgeous book called You People by Nikita Lawani. This is published by Viking and was out, I think, either in April or May, so it is out now. I have finished this, so I don't want to go too much into it now. The Pizzeria Vesuvio looks like any other Italian restaurant in London, with a few small differences. The chefs who make the pizza Florentinas are Sri Lankan and half the kitchen staff are illegal immigrants. At the centre is Tuli, the restaurant's charismatic proprietor and resident Robin Hood, who promises to help anyone in need. Welsh 19-year-old Nia, haunted by her troubled past, is running from her family. Shan, having fled the Sri Lankan civil war, is desperate to find his. But when Tuli's guidance leads them all into dangerous territory and the extent of his mysterious operation unravels, each is faced with an impossible moral choice. In a world where the law is against you, how far would you be willing to lie for your chance to live? This book definitely took an unexpected turn. It didn't really go the way that I thought it would. Beautifully written. I really enjoyed the prose, but like I said, I'm not going to go too much into it. Catch it in my review in a few days. My camera's flashing at me, so I need to hurry up. I may have to make a part 2 of this, but the next book I have, which is also out now, is How Much of These Hills is Gold by Sipam Zhang, and this is published by Virago. This is set in the gold rush, and I have read the first couple of chapters of this very recently in the last couple of days, and I was swept away by this book. The writing style of this is gorgeous. It's so inviting. So the opening of this book is from the perspective of 2 children, Sam and Lucy, and they wake up to find their dad has died in the night, and the story unravels from there. I've heard insane things about this, so I cannot wait to read it. And the last book I have to show for you, I'm going to be super quick about, because it's a book that I finished a couple of days ago, and this is The Catch by T.M. Logan. So this is out the first week of June, I believe. This is from the writer of The Holiday, which is a very critically acclaimed crime novel. So this is from the perspective of a dad who has a daughter called Abby, and she meets her perfect man called Ryan. And at the very start of the book, they tell the dad that they are getting married. They've only been together about 7 months. He's already proposed, and they're getting married in a month. And everybody is super happy. His wife is super happy. Everybody's like, he's the perfect man. And the dad is like, no, he's lying. I don't trust him. And then the book follows the dad trying to discover what is wrong with Ryan, because something doesn't seem right. This took a twist in the middle that I really didn't expect. The book splits into 3 parts, and I didn't see it coming, and it's a very unusual twist for a book to have, and I really enjoyed that. It's a big chunky boy. I think I read it in like 3 hours. I just swept through it. It's the kind of book where you keep thinking about it when you're not reading it, and I couldn't help but just sit through the night and read it, and it was great. But yeah, again, full review at the end of the month for this one. Okay, so I'm gonna have to make this a quick exit, but that's a lot of books. There are quite a few more, so if you want a separate book haul with all of those books, let me know and I can do that. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy and staying well, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye. My arm is shaking, my arm is shaking. Oh my god!